Hello and welcome back to our Writer's Workshop mini lesson. Today's lesson is about developing believable characters. So today you're going to learn that all writers that write fiction need to choose a story idea and then to begin to develop characters by creating their external and internal traits. So, for the past few days, you have been living like fiction writers. You have been getting all these ideas for stories. You've been writing entries in your writer's notebook. And you are all coming up with really good ideas. And I'm watching you all, or I'm actually watching my class, really develop as writers. And I'm sure you are all too. So, I want to share with you what I found in some of your notebooks. So in the beginning, when we started off the school year, students found that then this was a good story. You wrote, a girl climbs up a mountain or climbs a mountain by herself and she's proud. But now some of you are writing very detailed stories that look more like this, that has more thinking about the character and the story. Here's my example. A 9-year-old girl has a knee injury and will never be able to bend her knee. At first, she gives up on life, but something happens and she decides not to give up anymore. To prove herself, she sets out to climb the mountain that overlooks her house. She doesn't get to the top, but she proves herself in a different way and learns something. So today, each of you will reread all of your entries or some of your entries and select one idea to develop into a story that you can publish. So I'm going to teach you that fiction writers don't just go from choosing idea to just writing a draft. Instead, a fiction writer lives with the story idea for some time. I will teach you some of the thinking on the page strategies that fiction writers use to live with their characters and rehearse their drafts. You will see that these strategies focus less on planning what will happen in the stories, but more on bringing to life the people, the characters who will make things happen. A fiction writer once said, before you can begin writing your story, you need to know your characters so well that you know exactly how much change each one has in his or her pocket. Okay, like I mentioned earlier, we will need to reread our story ideas and select one that we're going to publish in a story. Honestly, I think that the truth is usually there's one idea that really chooses us and stands out to us that we really must write about. This morning on my way to school today, I realized that I've already decided that I want to write about that girl who's afraid of the dark and she wants to buy a nightlight. So I put a sticky note on that page in that entry so I know that I want to develop that story idea. So I already know some things about this girl. She is Chinese, so I added that to my list. I need to give her a name, so I thought Sistine was a pretty name, so I'm going to give her that name. I also know that she's afraid of the dark, so I listed that as well. So external traits or characteristics are things that you will see on the outside. And internal traits is what someone is feeling on the inside. So see how I came up with this character, and it wasn't just random things I put together. It was from my idea, and it fits together. There's this girl, she's Chinese. Her name is Sistine, and she is afraid of the dark. Okay. Now I just reread all that I've written. Let's see. I want to make her more like me. So this chart were about me, not Sistine. I would add to my internal traits that she is sensitive. What else? I also think that I want my character Sistine to be sensitive, but I also want her to be artistic. Okay, I've added all these things to my chart. Now I'm going to reread everything that I have here. I have a Chinese girl. Her name is Sistine. She's a young girl who's afraid of the dark. She's sensitive and she's artistic. Does this make sense? Well, when her father's gone, she's afraid of the dark. She's sensitive. So when you're sensitive, it also usually goes with being with a good imagination and creative. So I kind of imagine my character Sistine coming up with all these inventions and frightening thoughts in the dark. I can also picture her creating interesting artwork. Okay, I think my character traits or characteristics, I think they make sense. Okay, so do you see that when I'm creating a character, I begin with whatever I know, and I knew I wanted the character to be like me. You may know you want your character to be like somebody else, or you want your character to go from tough to being gentle. Start with whatever you want to know for your character. I hope you're noticing that I often really pause and I reread everything I created and I say things to myself like, do these different things make sense with our one person? Do they fit together in a believable way? Are these traits here for a reason? So far, I'm making sure that my characters are believable. Here's some advice for when you're developing your character. You can ask yourself these questions. And so start with whatever you've decided matters to you, about your character. Is your character like you? Is your character like someone you know? You can put together a character so that all the parts fit together like a person. Reread often. Do these things make sense? Do they fit together in a believable way? Are the traits here for a reason? If your character seems too good to be true, like it's very simple, make the character more complex and more human by asking, what's the downside to this trait? How does the character How does this characteristic help or hurt the character? You need to know your character's motivations and struggles. Okay, I'm going to think more about my character, Sistine, about being sensitive and about her caring about people. I'm thinking about why she cares people and how there needs to be a downside for this. So I added to my list that she's emotional. That that sometimes things get to her easily, like the dark getting to her, and her father being away gets to her. People's judgments get to her. Her feelings get hurt really easily. This is why she's really careful of other people. She assumes everyone else is emotional like her. So I added that to my inside feelings. Emotional. So now it's your turn to try. I want you to choose a story idea and begin writing external and internal characteristics of your character. Remember, I have to look back at my example of outside traits and my inside traits. I added some more outside traits. I also listed that she's light brown skin, light brown hair in a ponytail, casual clothes, and she wears self made dangly earrings. Can you really picture my character and see how realistic my character is? Remember, you really need to know your characters inside and out. Remember that phrase, you should know your characters as well enough to know how much change they have in your pockets. Remember, today and every day when you write fiction, you remember that instead of just launching right into just starting to write or focusing on writing the whole storyline, that you take time to stop and develop your character, giving your character those external and internal traits. To think about what your character's like on the inside and the outside, you might want to do those 2 columns like I did earlier when we did it together. Or maybe you decided you can divide your notebook into 2 columns. Or maybe you write it as 2 paragraphs. You are in charge, of course. So from this day on, I hope that whenever you write fiction, remember, don't just jump right into it, that you pause and take time to develop your character. I've started an anchor chart for this unit to help you remember. How to write a fiction story? Start by developing a strong story idea, characters, and setting. Okay, happy writing!